at this point, was there a driver around the truck yesterday that caught on fire?
We're not aware of a driver being around at the time of the fire.
A neighboring business owner told me that he saw a spark by that truck and all of a sudden flames went up.
We have not received that information at this point in time.
Chief, what leads you to believe the suspicious part of what you're talking about?
Well, in any fire investigation, what we have to do initially is look at natural causes. What investigators have done so far is to focus on those natural causes. We've tried to rule out the natural causes. To this point in time, we've ruled out the majority of the natural causes. That leads us, of course, to believe that it's potentially suspicious in nature. So we're going to proceed with our investigation along that line. We are always open to information coming forward. That's why we're asking for information to both help determine if this is an arson fire, in fact an arson fire, or if it is an accidental fire. But at this point in time, we've ruled from the information and the evidence that we have that it was not a naturally caused fire.
Can you help us understand more about that evidence that would lead you in this direction?
No, other than to say, as I said earlier, when we are investigating a fire, we would look at what would be a natural cause for the fire. Is there electrical, any electrical items that might be introduced? Is there lightning that could cause a fire? Are there other sources of ignition that could normally occur? At this point in time, we have not identified or been able to identify any. Not to say that there couldn't have been some that we're not aware of so far, but so far we have not in any way, shape, or form seen a natural cause to the fire. So that leads us to believe it's suspicious, and we'll proceed with the investigation under that basis. Again, if we get other information that can show us different, then we can certainly change that. But at this point in time, it's suspicious in nature.
Chief, from this viewpoint, it appeared that the major crimes from the Sheriff's Department were focusing on the tote area. What can you tell me about that area and maybe perhaps why that would be part of the focus?
Well, obviously, when we're doing a fire investigation, we are always trying to pinpoint the area of origin, where the fire started. That's the first step you have to take, is the area of origin, and then you can start determining and looking at the cause. We are focusing in the general area as an area of origin. We will continue to focus in that area as well as look at other potential areas, but that's why we have been focusing there this morning as a potential area of origin.
Chief, when you talk about natural causes, if you could just give us maybe a couple examples of what you've ruled out.
Well, again, is there anything that would normally be there electrical in nature? Is there anything that would be caused by lightning or something that is other than human caused? That's what we would look at. If it was an interior fire, it may be a heating device. Do we rule out a heating device? Do we rule out smoking? So we look at all of those, what we would just say as natural causes, rule those out first, and if they're not there, then we start looking at other causes.
You did this yesterday. You kind of gave us how the witnesses told you it developed. If you could do that again for us, that the tanker pulled in and then there were flames seen under the tanker and kind of how it progressed?
Well, what we said earlier is we knew that a tanker arrived on the scene approximately 3:30 p.m. The fire did not start until after 5 p.m. The folks from the office staff had left for the day. So to the best of our knowledge, the tanker driver nor any of the other employees from this business were on site at the time that the fire started.
Chief, who will you be interviewing? You said numerous interviews in the press release.
We won't talk about that at this point in time. I mean, obviously, we're going to be looking for any witnesses that might have seen anything. If we have any suspects, we could. At this point in time, we have no suspects. But we will just interview the neighbors to see if they saw anything, the employees to see if they're aware of, heard, or have seen anything. Anybody that might be able to give us information. As we've stated before, in any kind of investigation, whether it's something by the police department or the fire department, we get different pieces to the puzzle. And anybody that can provide us another piece to the puzzle helps us maybe bring together a sharper image of what that whole incident or that whole puzzle might look at. Right now, we're trying to collect pieces of the puzzle, and any information that the citizens can provide us about what they may have seen yesterday could certainly help us to put together the entire puzzle.
Those witnesses that you spoke with after the fire started, did they give you any information that might lead you to believe this to be suspicious, or was it simply because you haven't found natural causes?
No, again, what we have to do is we have to look at the scene, we have to look at what people told us, where they saw the fire, when it, early stages. All of those things are important to us in making a determination of an area and origin and what may have caused the fire.
Chief,
Chief, are there any hazards still to the firefighters or anybody?
Well, we continue in the warehouse area. There are a number of 55-gallon tanks, as we explained to you yesterday. They have all kinds of products, including transmission fluid, brake fluid, various weights of motor oil. So all of those are still in those. We have very carefully today, working with the excavation crew, tried to move those products safely, continue to flow water using foam on that to seep down into the debris. As you can see now, we're kind of in a stop mode to see if we get any flare-ups. As necessary, we'll continue to remove the debris. But there are a number of different things. Some of you were around this morning when we had a couple of those barrels let go. We talked about that yesterday, that you could get barrels covered by debris that continue to heat and they can let go at any point in time. So we continue to be cautious on the scene. We have offloaded tank trucks today with fuel, and we have also moved some tank trucks that were on the scene that were full of fuel that were not involved with the fire yesterday away from the scene, just to remove any additional hazards.
Chief, questions about the foam. Obviously in a fuel fire, that foam really helps out. Was it one of those things where immediately when you figured out it was a fuel fire, you called for those foam trucks, but does it take a while for them to get here from a Fairchild and an airport situation? People wondering about how quickly you were able to get foam on.
Well, as it relates to the crash trucks, obviously to get the crash trucks off of those sites, it takes some coordination. So we called for them. They responded as rapidly as they could, given their distance, given the fact that they've got to release off of their properties. They're there to protect airport and crash potentials. So they got here as quickly as they could. They certainly made a difference in us being able to control and extinguish the fire, particularly in the warehouse portion. It would have been nice to have them here sooner, but you know, the challenge is getting them here as quickly as you would like. But they were a tremendous assistance to us yesterday, and we were very appreciative of their help.
Did you call for them almost immediately?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, but we called for them fairly early on in the incident. Keep in mind, we were escalating the resources within the city, and when we got here, when the call came in, it came in as smoke in the area and did not come in as a specific type of fire. So we were actually sending companies initially to check on smoke in the area, and then after that it was reported of some explosion. So we didn't necessarily know exactly what we had until we got here.
Chief, can you talk about how this being such a huge fire, so many resources, so much time, the neighborhoods were evacuated, and now it's been determined suspicious. Frustrating that all of these resources were used on a fire that you're saying may have been intentionally?
Well, obviously, unfortunately, that's a part of our business. We have suspicious fires from time to time. We have to investigate every fire and determine a cause. This is the same as that. We have to dedicate the resources at the time of the incident to what the demands of the incident are. Obviously, if we determine that this is a crime and find somebody that can be held responsible, we will seek restitution for the cost of the expenses associated with fighting the fire. We do that on any fire in which we pursue and are successful in prosecuting.
Excuse me, is it normal for, you'd mentioned before that the tanker is pulled in, by my understanding, that it had pulled in when people weren't around. Is that normal in this business?
No, they were around. I mean, the business was still open. This is a site where they typically store fuel. They do not, other than minimal dispensing of fuel for race cars, they don't do any other, right now, disposal of fuel on the site or dispensing of fuel on the site. So they typically would have trucks come in, park for the night, and then leave and go the next day.
Chief, firefighters, talking about the tremendous efforts that they did. We talked about 17 companies being here, basically every single fire station around the city represented here. Can you talk numbers, literally numbers of firefighters you've had on scene, and talk about the rotation and how taxing something like this is?
Well, we have 58 people on duty every day, and we had all of the on-duty personnel through here at one point in time yesterday or the other. We also called back off-duty resources. We also had support staff and chief officers, training division, and others. So we're guessing somewhere between 80 and 100 firefighters were on the scene. In addition to being on the scene at this incident, we had mutual aid companies from the valley, from District 8 to the south of the city, District 9 north of the city, and District 10 west of the city that helped fill in our companies. They made a number of responses to other incidents in the community yesterday. As it related to rotating on the scene, it was a very hot day. The firefighters went through a lot. It was tough to get companies rehabbed as quickly as we would have liked to, given the amount of fire. We did that. When we did that, we took them to a rehab center. We checked their blood pressure, pulse. We had our physician on scene. When he felt it was safe to put them back into service, we did. So that's a normal procedure that we would follow on a major incident. It's certainly, when you have the hot weather and a fire of this magnitude, it's taxing on firefighters, and they did a great job under the conditions.
Can you talk a little bit about, when you're talking about them sitting in a rehab center with the doctor sitting there, you know, this is what they do. They kind of live to help people out and protect structures and that kind of thing. How much are they sitting there chomping at the bit saying, release us, we want to go back and help? Well,
certainly they want to get back in, but they also understand if they get back in too quickly, they could become a victim rather than someone that can help on the incident. So we make sure that they're hydrated, and we make sure that medically they're okay to go back in. At that point in time, too, we were getting a better handle on the fire. And when you have a better handle on the fire and you don't have a progressing fire, it makes it a little easier to rehab the troops, as much as we want to make sure they're taken care of. Yes, sir.
Could you speak some on the environmental impact of firefighting?
Of this incident? Well, obviously we had a number of different liquids, flammable liquids, that were caught up in the runoff of the water. We, at one point in time, estimated we were flowing between 10 and 20,000 gallons of water on this fire to help extinguish and control this fire. Flammable liquids are just, in fact, liquids, and they are going to go when you have that much water flow, and they're going to go with the flow of the water. So we notified right away the city's wastewater folks, as well as Department of Ecology, made them aware that we had runoff, and let them work on that challenge and that problem. We worked with Ecology today as we were coming back in and starting to move with debris. We also had some products coming out of the tanks. I explained to you earlier some of what those products were. We worked with Ecology and the city's wastewater treatment folks to capture that in vacuum trucks and haul it to a safe piping system that would go through the treatment plant and make sure that it would not in any way, shape, or form go to the river before it was treated. So we worked closely with Ecology and the city's public works staff in handling this incident.
Chief, are you calling this a crime scene?
Well, anytime we think we might have a suspicious fire, we call it a crime scene. Anything else? Thank you again. I apologize for the delay, and thanks for the great work yesterday and getting the word out to the community.